Hey guys, welcome to another BAC bow review. My name's Reed. Today we're going to review the 10-point Havoc RS440. So starting off with the specifications of this bow is 26.5 inches long. That's without the foot stirrup. With the foot stirrup it's like maybe 28 inches. The axle to axle, or the width of this bow from this point to this point, is 12.3 inches wide uncocked, just like it sits. And when it's fully cocked, it's 7.5 inches wide, which is extremely small. Now this bow has a 13.5 inch power stroke. That's because of how it's a reverse draw bow. The riser section is actually here at the back, and that lets the string come all the way to the very front of the bow. So that bolt is connected to the string and getting power the whole way until it's completely out of the bow. There's no wasted space essentially on the reverse draw. Now this bow is 440 foot per second, partly because of that reverse draw advantage. And it's got 172 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Now it gets that high because on this particular bow, it's actually 440 foot per second with the stock bolt. So a lot of crossbow companies, or a lot of crossbows that are out there, advertise a certain speed with relatively lighter arrow, maybe 20, 30 grains lighter than what people are actually going to be hunting with. But this bow with a hunting weight stock bolt is still 440 foot per second. So now we're getting into the features of this bow, and we already talked about the reverse draw a little bit. So 10-point calls it the reverse draw advantage. Basically, there's no wasted space on this crossbow, and there can't be just because of how small and compact it is. So the bolt is going to be in contact with the string all the way until the very front of the bow. So it's getting as much speed and power as possible. Now this comes with the Accuslide cocking system. The handle is stored in the stock, and you just pop it right out. And it can attach to the side here pretty easily. And this is going to be how you're cocking the bow back. You actually don't cock it with a pull rope or anything. You're just using this Accuslide. And once it's been attached to the string, you can just simply wind this handle. It'll crank all the way up, and you can actually decock it with that same Accuslide system. So there's no anti-reverse switch. There's no you never have to detension it. The biggest advantage of the Accuslide, in my opinion, is cocking and decocking the crossbow. This will never free spin on you, so you don't have to disengage any kind of safety feature to let the bow down at the end of the day. And again, if that wasn't clear, you can let this bow down at the end of the day instead of having to shoot a discharge bolt or shoot it off into a target back. One thing I forgot to mention about cranking this bow, once you have it cocked the whole way back, if you pay attention here, and just give it another wind or two, you'll notice that silver switch will click over. You actually need to then, once it's clicked the whole way, give it 3 back turns. And I don't know if you just saw the trigger box settle into place, but that is important for shot consistency. You need to let the tension on the crank system ease up so that the trigger mechanism and this, whatever holds this box in place, can actually be holding the tension instead of the strap. Now this comes stock with the S1 trigger, so we're talking about shooting. That's a 2-stage zero creep trigger. It's extremely light. It's a really crisp, clean shot feel. It doesn't pull you off target like at all when you're shooting, especially if you're shooting off a bench or a rest. And now this also comes with the micro track barrel. Probably can't see it here, but basically this barrel, instead of being flat aluminum, actually has grooves cut in it, and that reduces the overall friction on your center serving of the crossbow string, and it also increases speed. So you're going to have center serving last a lot longer, and you get more speed out of that. And the last feature of this crossbow is, or the last that I'm going to talk about anyway, is the scope. So this is the Evo X Marksman Elite scope, I believe. Now this one, it has what's called a speed ring. So basically, if you've not seen a speed ring or crossbow scope before, you sight in at 20 yards and you go back to your furthest distance, or maybe 50 yards I think is the recommended distance to shoot, and you use this ring to dial in essentially your magnification, and it adjusts for the drop of your bolt. So let's say you want to run 125 grain broadhead instead of 100 grain, you can sight that in with this scope and nothing will be off. You can be dead on with any bolt setup, whether you want to go with really heavy tips, really light tips, anything like that. Run a heavier bolt in general. So this scope is awesome. It also has really nice turrets here on the top. You don't have to unscrew a whole cap and use a penny or a screwdriver or something to adjust it. You just pull it straight up, turn it, and you made your adjustment and push it back down to lock it. And this is also lighted, and it does have a level on it as well, so you can check to make sure it's actually level, and that's really important when you get out to further distances. My opinions of this crossbow, so it's a very high-end crossbow, and it's got very few drawbacks. There's actually almost nothing that I see that mechanically is gonna, have an issue. It's gonna last a long time. 10 Point's been a really good brand as far as taking care of their customers and the bow lasting. It's built very well and very solid. And you really are getting what you're paying for, and it's got some really nice features, like the scope is probably my favorite on this bow. It's extremely fast, and you can basically hunt for dinosaurs with the thing with how much energy you're getting. I mean, off of a compound bow, for a bit of perspective, and off of a fast, like a heavy arrow, high kinetic energy set up on a compound bow, you're lucky to get 70, maybe 80 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. This thing has 172. That's ridiculous. So it has plenty of power, that's for sure. A lot of high-end crossbows are just off the charts these days, and this one is right up there with the rest of them. The couple of things that do annoy me, or the one thing that really annoys me, is, so if you see here, you might not be able to see it, but this quiver hits right before the stirrup does, and for me, that's a pretty big pet peeve on crossbows. It's not going to prevent me from buying a crossbow if I was in the market for one, but this to all crossbow companies, just measure your quiver and bring it back just a little bit so the stirrup hits first. It just bugs me. And I don't know if you've heard this too. When you put 2 extra bolts in the back here, if you've heard that rattling, you've probably heard it there. That's this point here rattling in this plastic piece there. It's basically able to store 2 extra bolts. The rattling of that, it's just the 2 on the back. The regular 4 in the quiver don't rattle like that. So you don't have to have the extra 2, and you don't usually need 6 bolts in the woods. But that rattling and the fact that the quiver hits first, those are probably my only 2 gripes on the whole thing. And that's being pretty nitpicky. So all in all, it's a really well-made crossbow, and you're definitely getting what you're paying for. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content, and we'll see you in the next one.